Welcome to the show about all things making music, from the creative process and workflow to gear and recording techniques. I'm your host, Brian Funk, musician, producer, Ableton certified trainer, and author of the 5-Minute Music Producer. Let's learn to become better music makers. Welcome to the Music Production Podcast. Today I'm speaking with Kristoffer and Janne of the duo A. Janne is a tap dancer with contact mics attached to her shoes. Kristoffer receives the audio in his computer running sequencers, synthesizers, drum machines, and Max for Live that all respond to Janne's movements. We had a fascinating conversation about how A collaborates and interacts musically for live performances and their new album, Live. It was inspiring to learn about these new and exciting ways of creating music on both a technical and creative level. And this is also the third time I've had Kristoffer on the show, and it was pretty cool to hear how what was once an idea the last time we spoke has now become a fully realized project. Please welcome Kristoffer and Janne of A to the Music Production Podcast. And welcome to the show. Good to have you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, cool to be back.
Yeah, it's really cool. I guess that means you're enjoying coming on the show. This is your third time here.
Yes.
And you don't come alone, though.
No, I brought someone today that I talked briefly about last time because we had just started working together then.
Yeah, that was about 5 years ago. And yeah, it was just beginning to be discussed working with a tap dancer, and I really had no idea how that was going to work. And now I've gotten to hear some of the music, and it's really cool. It's very percussive and textural and a lot of fun stuff. I'm really interested to hear how you guys work that in. So it's nice to have you both here.
Yeah,
nice
awesome.
to be here, yeah.
So the album is out, or would it be an EP technically, or the
too long for a 10-inch, so I would call it an album.
Okay, yeah, because I see 5 tracks, but they're long tracks, you know.
Yeah.
And I have some listens to it and really enjoyed it. It's kind of transportive, you know, kind of like an ambient type of thing, but a little more action-packed than a lot of the ambient music that I've listened to in the past. Kind of just skirting on that line. So congratulations to you both on it.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you.
I'd love to hear about how this came together and how you guys create these sounds we're hearing.
Yeah, where should we start?
Yeah. Where should we start? Well, first of all, we improvise. So everything we do is made up on the spot. I choose what kind of steps I want to make and what kind of rhythms and sort of textures that I want to contribute with, and Kristoffer does like live programming, which I don't understand so much about. But what I hear is that my sound changes, and his sound changes, and then sometimes I can't even tell what's what anymore. But we keep on improvising with the total of what's happening. There's a lot to talk about in the approach to the music, but maybe we should explain the technical stuff right away. I brought my little mics. I don't know if you can see.
Okay, the contact mics?
No, these are just very small mics, a little bit like those you would have in a musical,
like a headset type of thing
in your face, yeah. But they're a bit more sturdy, wrapped in some kind of rubber, and I put them, under my shoe right here.
Okay, so you're pointing at the spot between the heel and the toe.
Yeah.
So I guess you're not stomping on the microphone.
No, I'm not. I can't.
When you're tapping.
Crush the mic, but this is a good spot for the sound, to catch the sound of the toe tap and the heel tap. and the flat foot and whatever sound I'm making with the shoe. And I have a transmitter that sends my sound out, so you can hear what I'm actually doing.
Yeah, the acoustic sound.
The acoustic
The
sound.
real sound.
Even though the real acoustic sound is much better than the sound that comes from my transmitter mics, but it's better than nothing because it helps me. We can make sure that the tap still comes out, doesn't drown in the music that Kristoffer is making. That's coming out of his system. If we want that, sometimes it's supposed to drown, but it makes it possible to hear the actual taps. And then I have a contact mic on my. I usually have a little piece of floor with me, but it can also be put straight on the floor if it's a wooden stage, for example. And this contact mic takes my sound and brings it into Kristoffer's setup, and then he can use it, and you can tell the rest.
Yeah, I think it's one thing that's very interesting with this project is this like two angles to the same thing, kind of. That's also why I wanted to bring Janne on and do it together, because it's very interesting to look at the situation from two sides. But like on a technical level, it's the signal is coming in, and then it's a big max patch that I made, and also some loose Max for Live stuff that kind of routes this signal to all kinds of different places. So I have on my controller, I have many banks of parameters I can control, and all of these parameters I can tell an envelope follower to also control. So I can just grab any parameter that I'm controlling and then say, let's put Janne to control this now. And then it jumps up the amount that I select. So that's like one technique. And then there are many more as well. It's like processing just the raw sound from the contact mic. And it's like sampling that and then using like a step sequencer, but instead of the step sequencer just clocking along, it's almost like on modular and so on, you plug in a clock to the sequencer, and instead of having a clock, it's a tap dancer plugged into the sequencer. So whenever she taps, exactly, that's the real step sequencer.
Yeah,
with the tap tempo. Now,
yeah, right.
And,
There's a lot of jokes in here. We got to get them out. That's cool, though.
But then everything kind of follows Janne's dynamic and timing. And then, as she said a little bit, like what she's controlling and how it's affecting my system, that's being changed on the spot as I'm playing.
Okay, so that's really cool. So you've got the sound from the taps on its own that can be used for percussion and rhythms. But then you've also got the actual audio it's creating, and those waveforms can be used to change other parameters and effects, and I guess really anything you want within the music.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a lot of dimensions to what you're actually doing when you're tapping.
Yeah, it's like, again, a good parallel, like Eraker has been on a boom for a few years now. So people are really used to talking about CV signals. And it's almost turning this audio signal into a control signal. So it's kind of the same thing.
Wow, that's very cool. And I got to listen again now because...
we also record everything we do. There's so much to talk about. I almost don't know where to start, but we record our sessions and also the live performances, and the album that's out now that's called Live is from concerts, from those recordings. And when we listen back to the recordings, I don't know, I guess it can be the same for Kristoffer too, but I sometimes really can't know anymore what I did, because it's so there's so many layers to it. Of course, when we have improvised for like 40 minutes, you've been on some kind of journey, and it's very in the moment and sort of intense, and sometimes after you just don't know what really happened because it's such an experience. But also just listening back, sometimes I hear the taps and I don't know anymore how it happened, how I did it physically. And I personally really enjoy how abstract my own dancing becomes, how far away it becomes a new thing. Sort of, it's me, but it's also not me, of course, because there's so many layers. But yeah, and then if sometimes we also film. I mean, we film all our concerts, but sometimes we also film a rehearsal, and then that, watching that and listening to it is again a very, very different sort of total package, or informs you very differently. So, and now you've listened a little bit to our album, but we also have videos of all of those concerts. And I would be curious to hear how you experience the music or / the video if you would see it, if it would change how you would feel about the music, or if it would be distracting, or if it would be sort of amplifying, or because it's such a different expression in a way.
Yeah, I have to imagine there's a lot of discovery happening for you as you're performing, as you're tapping.
Oh, yeah.
To start to realize, oh, I'm noticing I'm affecting this parameter, because if Kristoffer's moving things around and changing what's affecting what, I have to guess once in a while, you're like, oh, cool, I'm making the music kind of move in this way and change in that way.
Yeah, that's a real big deal for me, this experience. And it keeps like this project, this band, where it feels like a never-ending research journey or something, and it just never gets to a conclusion like, oh, this is how I should do that, and now I do it well, and now it's over. It just keeps on challenging me and us, I guess, but I feel challenged all the time, and I feel I mean, I'm sort of discovering a lot, but just like in the actual moment of stepping onto the board or making a sound, and then hearing if I have any sort of effect on anything, like we never. He never tells me what's coming, and maybe he doesn't know himself yet. Maybe I'm dancing for a little while before anything happens, and in that time I'm only dealing with my own sound, which if I'm not, like, I can't sort of expect anything, but then to deal with whatever's coming instantly, asks for a lot of trust, and sort of you have to just accept and move on immediately all the time, and that's very that's challenging and very fun, and then there's all the different things. This is maybe a bit hard to imagine, I don't know, but when I tap dance on different types of floors, or different types of shoes, I hear my sound changing, the acoustic sound. And then I love this floor, or I hate these shoes, or like there's nuances that I am really appreciating that I know that nobody else cares about. If I'm on stage, it can mean a lot to me, and then it can mean nothing to the audience, because they just I'm just really nerdy about my sound, right? So then I suddenly get like a whole universe of other sounds from Kristoffer, and it changes how I feel about my body and how I feel about movement. Like I can feel so light suddenly, and I can feel like my feet can move faster than I thought I could. And I will actually move faster, not just an illusion, but it'll sort of free me up or something. And then other sounds just are so, like if I have a little bit of latency, sort of, I'm probably not using the right words for the technical aspects, but sometimes I trigger something, but it's a little bit behind me in timing wise. And then it can be so heavy for me to keep going. And I feel like my tap dancing technique is suddenly gone. I'm not like it's not as accessible to me as with those other sounds and this there's so many things that change in my body according to the sound, and it's really interesting and exciting to play with, and then to see what my legs are doing, what my feet are doing, because it'll just sort of roll, and then if I look down and I'm like, what am I doing exactly right now? And I can kick myself out of the thing I'm doing, and sometimes I can see, okay, it's like a heel and a toe and a this and a that, and then I'll be in like, I don't know, a 7/8 or a really weird 5 or some off, some uneven measure, and I can hold on to it and keep doing it while being conscious about it. But many things I have to just let happen because it's too new for me to get a grip on it, if you understand what I mean. So
yeah, that's cool. So you're making me think of this psychological experiment that they do on people. I think it tests like empathy or something along those lines, where they put a fake hand on a table, and then you have your hand underneath it, and they're touching both of the hands in the same way, right? And what they found is if then they suddenly hit the fake hand with a hammer, people go, ow, and they feel that, so it changes their. Now, if you're getting these different sensations, does it almost do this sort of thing where the ground feels different than it really is?
Definitely. Yeah, I definitely feel like this, yeah. And I mean, it's not painful. I'm not being hit.
But I can almost imagine it might feel like the ground is softer than it is, or harder than it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It really changes sort of my perception of my own kinesthetics, my own feeling of what my muscles can do, what my physical body can do, and it can be really frustrating if it's like a sound that's sort of too heavy or too challenging, and I sort of have to fight for it, and I can like work myself into a cramp or something. It can be tough, but it can also be the opposite. It can be very liberating, and it was also liberating just to understand that this is happening, that it's not me. That one day I can tap dance and the next day I cannot tap dance. That is not my skills, but it's really
it's an external factor.
The feeling, yeah, that I'm dealing with at the moment. And in many ways, I feel like this applies to like life and other types of interactions as well. Any kind of dialogue, and how a certain voice impacts you, and etc. I mean, it's much broader topic in a way, but in this case, very cool experience and experiment, and I think more tap dancers should feel it, should experience it, because it's so enriching in a way.
Yeah, it really says a lot about the way our brain is reacting to the sensory input that it's receiving. And when you're hearing is telling you something so different than what's actually happening. We go along with it. I felt something like that sometimes if I have like a synth guitar, where you kind of expect, or sometimes even certain pedals, where the guitar, you pluck the string, the sound happens, it's a loud transient, and then it fades down. That's the normal thing. But sometimes with different effects, you pluck and it might swell. And it almost makes you feel like your strings are loose or rubbery or something like that. But it's not. And like you said, too, there have been times where I can play something until I look at it. And then, no, the strings are not reacting differently. It's just the way I'm hearing it. And it's hard to think when you're doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like it's the same thing as when people are if people are using VR and they get nauseous. It's because their senses are not matching up, so the brain think that you're probably poisoned. So that's why some people need to puke after they've been doing VR, because it's like your sight and sound is telling you one thing, and then they're like I don't know, their movement and so on. They're like the physical touch and so on is telling them something else, and gravity, the sense of gravity. And then if it's just like the frame rate is just a little bit choppy, then it's like the brain is like, no, I don't believe this. But when it's enough, then it's like, oh, I believe it.
I believe it.
Yeah, wow, that's just fascinating that it takes the whole art of tap dancing, and dance is usually, and music is kind of a one-way street, right? You dance to the music, and now your dance is changing the music, and there's this back and forth now that
that's
you wouldn't
fun.
normally have.
I mean, it's the tap dancers have been working with these types of things before, but it's all very individual, of course. And I mean, I come with a certain set of skills or background, and every tap dancer is different, I would say. But the biggest difference is that Kristoffer is so good. so he just has a big sort of capacity for the technical part of it, but then also the musical part of it. And of course, now we've spent 5 years and we keep sort of digging in this direction. And that's a really big luxury to have. I'm very glad that I bumped into Kristoffer in a project one day, because I could never, like, if I would have started this kind of project on my own, I would have had to learn so much about the technical part of it before I even could play. I mean, play as in have fun and really get going. And so that's just really lucky, I would say.
Right. Yeah, to have somebody doing that stuff that you can interact with. And I'm sure, and the surprise factor just seems really cool too, where you kind of
and
like,
that goes both ways, you know, because it's like I can set up something, and then I can kind of guess a little bit what Janne is going to do with it, but then she does something differently, and then I have to make a decision, like, do I now kind of just stay with this and then let Janne explore it and she will figure out the cool way to use it, or do I adapt to what she is doing? And this like back and forth conversation is happening all the time.
Do you need to have some kind of click track metronome that you follow, or
no,
does
she
set that?
she does the clicks.
Yeah.
Right. And then because you're using those sounds almost like you said, like CV, it must be a very fluid
but there is no
thing,
like quantizing or anything. Everything is just like very one-to-one in a way. So for example, in this project I need to have the buffer size on 64 to keep it snappy enough, because the tap sound is so short. So like I had done some of these kind of techniques before with drummers, but if it's like a snare drum, the sound is much longer. So if there is a little bit more latency, the snare drum masks it because it's there is sound in the gap. But with the tap sound, it stops so quickly that if there would be more latency, you really hear it. So I need to have it on 64, need to keep it very snappy. And then, as Janne talked about, it's like very different how you experience the different sounds. So like the technical latency is stable, but the like practical latency depends, of course, on the sound. Like, is there a like kind of a round attack curve on it, or is it a very defined attack point? And how quickly does this happen? And what frequency range is it in? Is it kind of a continuation of the acoustic tap sound, or is it a super different one so you really hear when it starts? And all of this kind of stuff really affects the groove and how everything feels and melts together and so on. And then it's also very interesting for me because okay, I have the kind of overhead to keep up with all of these like technical layers and like, okay, now I'm going to sample here and then she's going to trigger it like this and then I mix it like this. And then the next one is like, okay, you keep track of the harmonies and like the tonalities. But then it's like, then we are playing out, like, I have no idea what time signature she is in now. So then I only think about it as like pulses. So it's almost like putting the time signature in live to like 1/4. So it's just the same over and over again.
Okay, yeah.
But that's just
click,
sometimes
click,
it's very
click,
clear,
yeah.
but yeah, sometimes it's impossible.
Oh, that's really funny. So you're not getting any kind of indication this is the beginning of the bar. It's just kind of always the beginning of the bar.
Yeah, and sometimes we are like we have different. So it's like I think the one is here, and she thinks the one is here, and then we just play, and that actually creates a very cool groove. And then the patterns then like they overlap and they sync, but they go in different rounds, kind of.
Well, that's a trick I like to do in my own just regular, old-fashioned music production is have like a 3-bar loop, a 5-bar loop, and a 4-bar loop playing together. It works really nicely with percussive stuff because there's not as much, I can keep my chord progressions maybe in like a common time, like 4/4, but then all this other stuff is looping in these different kind of patterns. It really extends the musical idea out a lot.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, and if it's like it's quite common to like if you have a sequencer and you can maybe set the length of the different rows. So you have one that's like 7 steps and one that's 8 step. So it will take like 8 steps or 7 steps before they sync up again. So they will create a longer phrase. But then you add the thing that maybe the timing goes like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, so then it's like then it's not or this synchronization points kind of move in a different flow as well.
It's really fun to play with. I enjoyed a lot this sometimes these polymetric feeling type of things that we do, but also this slowing down and speeding up and or being busy with texture and then suddenly letting some groove roll out of it and sort of plastic feeling. And I often try to remind myself that it's also cool to have a steady groove sometimes, and then just to provide something that's as even as possible for a long time, either without any feeling of bars or with the proper time signature that's easy to understand or to feel. But I my problem is that I'm just I will react so quickly on any impulse and any inspiration that it's like hard to. I have to sometimes remind myself of how real drummers work and how they can actually hold a groove for a really long time and keep it steady and keep it grooving, but not. And if they take make a break and then come back to it, that they're just as steady as it. Like, of course, that's an ambition for me too. I want to be able to do that. It's just so much fun to jump from one to the other, like to play with stuff. So it's tempting to. Yeah, and many times I am doing something steady and I get an impulse and then I have this dilemma. Can I now play and can I let the groove go and play with this new thing I heard, or does everything fall apart if I do that? And that all depends, and sometimes I don't know. We're in the middle of the music and I don't know how many layers are connected to my sound. And so if I stop, maybe the whole thing stops, or not. And so I have some strategies to figure things out in those situations to test, to double check what's actually attached to my feet right now and how can I keep it steady and then make a more conscious choice. Yeah. If you understand what I mean, there's just so many layers sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, you must sometimes wonder how much power I have right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Like Kristoffer, what am I controlling right now? It'd be nice to almost have like a communication device.
Yeah, because it could be, I feel like I could have like 5 instruments that I'm playing at the same time, and then if I hear that the rhythms are really clearly all mine, then I can assume that I am playing them. But sometimes some of these sounds are uneven in how they sort of react to me or how I play them. So it's harder for me to detect that this one bass sound that comes every fourth hard stomp I'm doing is also something I am doing, because it's in between all the other steps and sounds and rhythms that I'm making, and it's only reacting when I hit the heel just there with the mic, just like it's
Yeah, and these are like interesting, almost like playing games with each other, you know? So when I'm playing there and it's like, okay, I can, for example, say this bass is, I have a sequencer and then I press in some notes, and then every time she taps hard enough, it plays the next note. Then it's like very one-to-one. It's like this will follow Janne's groove perfectly. But I can also do something differently and like play the bass like manually and loop it. But I close the filter almost all the way. And then I like sidechain, use this envelope follower to Janne. So every time she taps, actually the filter pops up. So that's very different thing. Like this bass actually has its own timing, but it also follows Janne's timing. And these two can kind of push and pull together. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, now it perfectly locks. And then maybe Janne thinks, oh yeah, it's more like one-to-one thing. And then she like stops or do one of these tests or change it. And then it's like, oh no, the bass is actually, now it's just playing differently, but it's still playing. And I tried to stop it. So it's like all this back and forth is, it's a little bit of a game kind of.
Right. You're kind of figuring out what's happening as you go. There's that sensation of that sometimes if you're playing, I think especially like electronic music, 'cause I've sometimes jam with other people using Live, say for instance, Ableton Live. And there can be a point where you're wondering, like, am I making that sound or are you making that sound? Like, who's doing that? And like, then you realize, oh, it's me. But with this, when you have the different ways to send the information back and forth, and it's much more abstract, I suppose, right? Like a tap doesn't usually mean a filter opens up in kind of the regular world or normally that we're used to.
Yeah, and then it can be like even the like next level. It can be also that both the sound, like the acoustic sound of Janne, or the sound from the contact mic, goes through some effects that we cannot hear yet. But also this track and the bass track, they both go into a different kind of distortion bus. And then it's like, yeah, if Janne taps now, the like a raw sound will get through, but she will also open the filter of this bass, so it will actually kind of squeeze out this raw sound. And then after like 3 bars, actually there is a little bit of a too low note in the bass, so then so then the raw sound comes through and it creates kind of a feedback. And it's like, so there are all these kind of interactions also interacting with each other, you know.
That's really cool. And that's something that happens a lot of times with acoustic instruments. Just even when you're within a room or recording onto, say, tape, there is some sort of interaction that happens a lot. And I've found in my own productions that a lot of what I'm doing is trying to recreate some of that. But now you've got it on a new level. I love it. What is your actual like gear that you're using? What pieces, how many things do you have to make all this magic transformation and communication happen? We got the 2 mics, right? So
yeah. So the
2 mics, 2 feet.
That's start. And the contact mic on the floor then.
Okay, so it's like 3 inputs you're getting?
Actually, the like the acoustic sound doesn't go to me at all. That just goes to the PA. So it's just the contact mic that goes into my setup. And then for the most part, I use a setup that actually people can go and have a look at in the previous episode of that I was on the music production podcast. But
which one?
But
the second time, right?
Yeah, second time. But a quick recap is that I have 2 Mac Minis. And the reason why it's 2 is because I've used the same setup for quite a while now. And the earlier Mac Minis, like I could do a few tracks, but since I had to have this low buffer size, like when I wanted to expand it, I actually had to get the second computer. So it's the 2 Mac Minis with sound cards. And then for the controller part, it's the Linstrument 128. That's kind of my MIDI keyboard where I play notes and so on. And then I have a split. So on the left side, I also have some of the pads. I use this polyphonic expression. So I don't play notes, I just control parameters with it. Then I have a little Fader Fox controller with 24 knobs and a couple of the mono grids. But then this whole magic is that with these mono grids, they are controlling this max patch that I talked about. And then all of this stuff get like a lot of banks. So then I can like these 24 knobs, actually it's like 200 knobs or 256 knobs.
I remember talking to you about that last time, and I avoid banks. I want my knobs to always do the same thing.
Yeah, so
you're like, nope, not me.
The secret trick to make this work is my tiny little Arduino screen. So it has just 2 lines of text, but it is right there in the setup. So whenever I turn a knob or press a button, it says on the screen what I just did. So, for example, if I go to bank 1 and I turn knob 1, I go to bank 2, and now the physical knob doesn't line up with the parameter on bank 2. As soon as I touch it, it says on the screen like, okay, you are trying to control filter cutoff, and the physical knob is here, but the parameter is here, so you have to go here and get it. So I don't have to like listen like, is it working now? Is it okay now? I think it's working. But I can actually see like, you have to go to the value of 20, choop, choop, and then I get it.
Okay, so it won't do anything until you like pass through that value with the control.
Exactly. So it's basically
Gotcha.
like the pickup mode in live, except I kind of recreated it in
Right.
Max so I can see it on the screen what value I need to get to.
Yeah. Nice. That makes a lot of sense in that case. So I usually use I forget what it's called right now, where it kind of if my values say at 64 but my knob's at 20 and I turn it lower, it will
Yeah, it's
move the
called like
fit.
value scaling or something.
Value
I think.
scaling. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a
something like that.
scaling, something like that. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So that way, at least it does something,
Yeah.
you know, but you don't want that in that case.
No.
How long did it take you to build that setup? Was this something that I have to imagine, I mean, unless you are kind of a wizard here. So I would have to imagine there's a lot of figuring this out and adding things and going rather than I built it all and now we're ready to play.
Yeah. Actually, I did it as part of my bachelor project when I was studying music technology. And then I actually just wanted to make a system where I could control a lot of things in a small amount of space. And I had tried a few different ways of doing it. Like I had the Ableton Push 1, etc. And then like you can move around and all of this. But the problem with that one is it's so locked in, like you have to use it exactly how Ableton wants you to use it. While I like to set up all this custom stuff. So it started with me thinking like, how can I do this? And this was also like learning Max kind of project. And then it just started there, and I was like, oh yeah, now I can control this. Now I made these virtual banks, and actually the way I do it now, I am actually able to get the value somewhere else and just combine the two. And then my what's it called, veileder, counselor, guidance person, my teacher, he said like, yeah, it's very nice the things you're doing now, but if I were to say anything about the whole setup, it's quite like binary now. It's like on and off and very like you have this knobs, but there is no like human expression, weird input kind of things. So then I implemented this the polyphonic aftertouch things on the instrument. So these pads control the same as the knobs, but I can do multiple fingers and like move up and down. And I was like, yeah, and it would be maybe nice with LFO, so I made that. And then also, yeah, envelope. And I was like, and we can also do maybe audio envelope. And not too long after this, I was invited to join Janne for a project, and that's the first time we met. And then I was like, oh yeah, tap dancer, huh? Wonder what cool like connections I can get from that. Like you think about the whole world as the big modular system of plugging everything into everything, you know?
Right.
So that's where it started, and then it's just slowly built over time. And like I added the second Mac Mini, which is like it's controlled from the first one. So it's basically just like a little module, kind of, you know, those old rack synths that you would just plug a MIDI cable into. It's kind of like that, except it has the MIDI and the audio.
Well, it's kind of comforting or reassuring to hear that it was this development, because I think, say, anyone like listening that wanted to try to figure out how to build some kind of setup like this, it seems overwhelming if you look at it where you are today.
Yeah.
Seeing that it started somewhere and built, and it's even really cool that this was your Learn Max project. So you had this mission, and through that mission, you're learning the software, which is ultimately taking you down new roads, even still today, to change things if you want or interact differently.
Yeah, and if people want to start trying out some of these things, now there are actually quite a lot of built-in tools into Live. with some of this, like there are envelope followers in Max for Live that you can route the stuff. And I remember in the earlier projects, I also just used the sidechain input on the filter and on the gate and so on. Just make sure like the attack and look ahead and all of these parameters are like on the lowest level, so it's the snappiest and so on. But you can actually, that's I also teach like yourself, and one thing I very often tell my students is that if you start first by understanding what is happening, like practically, like musically, like if you can just describe the sound, you don't think about the technical stuff, but it's like, what is happening here? And then like you understand that, oh, it's getting brighter the more sound that comes in. And then you can go to the next level. It's like, okay, and how would we implement this in the most crude, easy technical way? And then you can like build and build and build on. And if you think about it like this, then it's also much easier to get familiar with different gear and different software and all this, because all of them are building on the same concepts.
Right.
And then you can make your super fancy custom solution that makes you able to like do the ultimate version of this and change the routings and so on super fast. But like you can actually start building some of these things and exploring it in your production, and like simple things like, okay, I have a synthesizer here and I put a gate on it and I sidechain the gate to a drum kit, for example, inside Live.
Yeah, learning those small things. That's a lot of what we do, is these little building blocks. It's very modular, like you said. Like once you learn on a synthesizer envelopes and filters and LFOs, suddenly you can do that on almost anything, any synthesizer, any sound, really. You start thinking of things a little differently. Yeah,
and then
the envelope follows
on,
a cool one.
Yeah, and then you've done it on a synth, and then it's like, yeah, and here's a sampler. It's like, it's all the same. We just changed the oscillator part to a sound file.
Yeah, that's how I explain it too. It's normally we have sine waves, but now we have the sound of, maybe in your case, tap.
Yeah.
I could certainly see how it's challenging to try to recreate a performance in your case because there's so many variables, and sometimes that even happens. I mean, even just playing my guitar, sometimes I hear something, I gotta figure out what I did, and it can be complicated if there's some effects going on or some processing happening. But in this case,
Yeah,
you
but
gotta also figure out what you're doing.
Yeah, that's true. But it's also like, I feel with every music project, you kind of decide on what is the focus on the project, and like, okay, now I'm going to go on stage and I'm going to do this thing. And that thing can be like, okay, I'm going to go on stage and I'm going to show, like, we're going to play the most technical rock music, and I'm going to play the fastest on guitar, and everyone's going to be really wowed, and then they're going to be very energized by all these rhythms. Like, that can be one thing. Or it's like, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to sing the most heartfelt, and everyone is going to cry. And with this project, I feel it's very much this like exploration aspect. So like, now we're going to go on stage and we're going to have this conversation where we are constantly exploring and talking to each other. And then we're going to see what comes out of it. And we kind of know some things because we use the same instruments over and over, and like maybe I'd start doing something and it's like, oh yeah, this sounds a little bit similar to one thing we did, so maybe he's trying to go in that direction now, so maybe Janne does something towards that, but on the way we change. And then it's always this back and forth, and that's kind of the core of the project in a way. So then we actually don't want to recreate that much, because that's not what the project is about in a way.
But I could imagine that we could go there at some point. Like, it's just there's sort of like too much to do, too many nice things to explore and to practice with. So, for example, we had a release concert 2 weeks ago, I guess, and we were so lucky to have it in a theater, a big black box, and we wanted to use this occasion to work with the space as well. And it was super, I mean, it's challenging and it's hard work, and we did it. It worked, but it's hard work. But we really enjoy discovering how this then works with certain visuals. We also have a miniature version of our playing together, where I play with just fingers, and Kristoffer has an absolute minimal setup, and then it's projected on a big screen, and then later there's another visual coming in, and then there's light, and then there's some haze, and then I'm moving through the whole space, and testing, when I get closer to Kristoffer, when do I start triggering something? Is it when I'm 5 meters away or 4 meters away? And it's just I just really love to work like this. So and it's like there's not enough time anyway, so we just have to sort of keep on our track. But I'm also curious how it would be to do like sort of boot camp, to spend a week trying to recreate certain things again and again and again, and to see what that would do with our with my tap dancing and with his playing. Like how would that free up some brain space, so I could do I don't know, that I could tap dance faster or be more clean, and would it be really satisfying to sort of nail certain things, even though they would be weird and in weird time signatures, or with 7 funky layers or whatever. Like I'm also curious about that, how that would what that would tell us, and what we would learn from it, and what we would sort of take into the next stage of our project, if we sort of learned this, or nerded around this for a long time. It's sort of on our list of things that we could explore, but that list is long. It's like there's so much. Yeah. There's so many things. We also, a year ago, there was another huge release of my own album, where also Kristoffer joined me for one track. And at the concert, we had a third player, a percussionist, like a classical percussionist, played on a vibraphone. And then also I played on a self-made chime made of hanging taps. Anyway, there were like a lot. First of all, there was one more person, which was a huge difference in our interaction. And then there was harmony coming from him on the vibraphone. And it was just super interesting to see how our music changed. I loved it, but yeah.
And we are in a kind of an interesting spot in the project now, I feel like, because now we have been doing this for some years. I think it's in February. We have our 5th anniversary for the very first gig we did as a duo. And I have kind of forced myself that, like, I have developed the setup a little bit in the beginning, like when I added the second Mac and so on. But other than that, I tried to really stick with the same setup. So I didn't change the live set or anything. And I was like, how much can I get out of the same thing? Because I can see many things that I could kind of pre-set up that would make it very easy to make something that would probably like impress people, or like, oh yeah, then we got this huge complex sound that it moved in a space like this, and all of this, if I had prepared it beforehand. But I thought that it was an interesting angle to like not do that and not take the easy route in a way. And just like, okay, if we just stick with the same instrument now, what can we do? And in some sense, I feel a little bit like now that we made the record as well and played many concerts. Now it's kind of a spot to also make a choice if we want to stick on just the same path, or if we want to move in a different direction, or like expand or push something. So I could, for example, see, like I have a few instruments that is like all made in Max that are very like specific. Like there is a drum synthesizer that I made that is very like tuned to Janne's input and so on. And I could see, for example, making more instruments that is like, this instrument is like already tuned to this project. You can still go many directions and so on, but the core is kind of tuned to it, because now it's sort of like I'm using this other instrument that I'm almost like kind of hacking or like forcing to adapt to Janne's step dance. So that could be a direction for me at least to go in, for example.
I guess that happens with projects, right? Like you create something and you're learning it and experimenting, even if it's a kind of just a group of an ensemble of players, and then you get maybe like some kind of product like an album, and then you kind of say, okay, now what? Do we keep exploring this? Because there is kind of always infinite things to explore, but do we want to shake it up a little? Do we want to go in a slightly different direction and see where it goes? It's very interesting too what you guys say about maybe trying to recreate some of the music, because sometimes when you, again, like I can really only speak, I can't speak to this dimension of like otherworldly instruments you guys are using. But when you play with people, you might start jamming and you kind of feeling things out and you get a sound. And then when you start trying to recreate those, it might put you into more of a routine in what you do, but you also get a lot of freedom in now how you do that. There's a lot of, it changes the way, well, how am I going to perform this part now? Now I'm going to really refine that. And it's kind of exciting because you guys are, I imagine there aren't too many counterparts musically to people that are doing things like this. So you have a lot of options, a lot of freedom, a lot of space to explore.
That's true. And then it kind of, then you have to also choose where in this like circle of development you want to be, and if you want to move and so on. Like if you imagine something like a circle of life. So you have like in the beginning you have like some academic that figure out this math equation, and then there's this programmer that turns it into like a sound product that they upload on GitHub, and then there's this noise musician that experiments with it in a venue for like 4 people, and then you end up with like a more kind of commercial plug-in product maybe, and put into a mainstream DAW. And then there are like the experimental people trying it out, and then it moves on, and then you get like super commercial pop music in the end that makes a lot of money. and then that money get kind of fueled via tax, kind of back to funding grants for the academic and the experimental artists again, and then it keeps on like going like this, and then you can choose like where in this do I want to be? Do I want to be in this like super experimental space? Do I want to be in this middle point where it's like actually now we are implementing some of these techniques, but it's like clearly music? Or do you want to be in this more polished, or do you want to like move back and forth and so on?
There's also another type of circle, I guess. If you think about our gigs, we've been performing for, well, mostly it's sort of in a music festival situation, but sometimes it's more like a party situation, like the festival opening has just happened and then we're playing right after the opening and people are maybe already a bit happy and chatty and then as you might have heard on the album, like on one track people are really shouting and enjoying the music and really with us, like almost dancing themselves. And then other concerts, people are really, like the release concert we just had, people were neatly sitting on their seats. I think they'd left their beer outside. I'm not sure. And it this music has the potential of being really like if I keep my groove more steady and if we have a focus on a certain type of build-up, then it can sort of become a techno party almost. And that's very different from those sessions where it's more like a soundscape or a movie or something very uneven and glitchy. Or so we can also like think let's do a year of like party music and try to play as late as possible in any club and make people dance with what we do. And then I would have to change my tap dance a little bit, and you know that would be. But we can also think more like we want to play like how do you call that? Like super long, like 5-hour sets at some museum, and it just keeps going. And people enter and exit, and we just keep going. And we've also had concerts where contemporary dancers have moved into our space and away again, and have suddenly like been a part of our expression. And yeah, so there's so many directions, and some of those directions would probably earn us more money, and others maybe not so much. But it's all so much fun. So it's not like we only like the weirdest art or high art or low art. Like that's not a problem. The problem is that there's not enough time to do all of it. So it's just so. But yeah, we enjoy it.
Yeah, you can really picture it at a lot of places, like the art installation. We're serious sitting down watching, or no, we're having partying, we're dancing. You guys are, it can be very interactive even, I'm sure, where people are dancing along with you. That's really cool that you have that range in what you guys do.
Yeah, and it's also like in all of these settings, it's like you have different ways in for people as well. Like some people are way into electronic music, so they're like they connect with the sounds first. And some people are very into the technical aspect, and I start thinking about like how the system works and from like a tech angle. And then you have some people who are either more into dance or just like this connection between us, or maybe they have never seen tap dance before, so that's the angle in. And then it's like the door is open, and all of a sudden they're like the gig is done, and they enjoyed it a lot. And they would maybe like, if you just like talked about it, they would maybe never put on this kind of music or anything, but they found a way in, and then they enjoyed it when they were there.
You give people a lot of angles to appreciate it.
Yeah, but it's also what you're saying is it's hard to have people sort of understand what we're doing by just talking about it
Without them seeing it.
Yeah, that's frustrating, and it's story of my life because tap dance has certain connotations, certain stigma to it, a lot of history, and I guess in the US it's more common. Of course, I mean, more people have seen it or have had a chance maybe to see it live. But in Europe or in Norway, nobody has seen. Like I can sort of assume that any audience sees it for the first time, and that's good. But it's also it's not necessarily bad. If they're already there to see it, then they see what we're doing, and then we're already on one page in a way. But when I'm trying to tell people what I'm doing as my profession, that's one discussion, and also like explaining about and what we do. Then people get curious about tap dance, electronics. Oh, I wonder, it triggers something in people, but they will almost always assume that they won't like it.
And many times actually at concerts, like after the concert, people come up to us and it's like, yeah, I came here just because of my friend, or because you have been like bugging me about this for like 4 concerts now and I never showed up. And I didn't think I would like it, and I loved it. But I couldn't imagine it before.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine, I guess, the tap dance.
I think anyone that knows tap dancing, has seen it before, you don't see it in this world. You don't see it in this kind of music. It's I think show-tuney kind of musical type of stuff. And of like a bygone era, really. But this is really cool to see it brought so far into the future. So
I have to disclaim right away though that it's not bygone, and it's it's really alive. People haven't seen it. Like there's so much great tap dancing in all kinds of genres. Maybe there's not so much in electronic music yet, but there's of course a lot of jazz music that has tap dance in it, or tap dancers that work with jazz musicians, etc. It's just it just has to come. It has to get some more exposure, but it's really happening, and there's some amazing tap dancers, especially in the US, but also in Europe, hidden in every city, at least one. and we know each other, and I'm inspired by my fellow tap colleagues all over the world. Yeah, there's great stuff. And everybody keeps saying, no, it's not dead. It's actually very much alive. But yeah, it's like hidden a little bit for the regular public in a way.
Right. Now, when you're improvising on this, all just in general in your music, I mean, it's usually something musicians, whether they consciously say it or not, there's some sort of agreement on certain things. It might be the tempo, it might be the beat, the chords, the key, that serves sort of as these safeguards so that it's not just pure chaos and it doesn't completely fall apart at any given moment. How do you guys manage to do that with what you do when it is so experimental and you might not really know exactly what you're going to get as you're going into it? Do you have things, I don't know where it would be, or if it's like physical cues or anything, do you have ways to make sure it doesn't just totally explode in front of you?
No, not really.
All right, that's exciting.
I think it's like we get a little bit of a shared language by doing it many times. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is like, if you are, let's say you meet up with a fellow electronic musician, as you talked about earlier, and it's like, oh, who is doing that sound? Oh, whoops, it was me. And here, this is not the case, because, okay, maybe, I don't know if I'm triggering this now or not, but it's like Janne's original sound is very defined. So everything that is not a tap sound is coming out of the computer. So we know that. And this also means that it's maybe more my responsibility that there aren't too many clashing elements. So if I feel like there is too much going on, or we get like insecure, like maybe you get nervous or you're super tired or something, then if I manage, then always the solution is to start stripping back layers. And then it's like, maybe we're stuck with just one. And maybe this is connected, or it's just a separate one. But then we like bring it down and we just work with this one thing. I think that's our biggest escape rope, kind of. But other than that, we don't agree on anything. Like sometimes it's like, whoops, what should we do now? And Janne says like, oh, let's do a pretty one, and then that's where we start. And then after 5 minutes, it's no longer
Whatever
a pretty one,
means.
but
Yeah. We do almost always agree on a time. We
like
say
10 minutes, for example.
Let's do 10 minutes, let's do 20. It's usually 10, 20, 40, or 60. And we have a clock because I really lose track of time sometimes. And this is really good to because depending on the setting, I can assume that I will work a lot. Like I will not leave Kristoffer. I can leave him alone a little bit, and he can do a solo. I can step off the board I can be quiet for up to, I don't know, maybe 3 minutes even, which would feel very long. But I can do that. That's a part of things that we agree on, that we can leave each other alone. We're just two people, so it's also, I mean, there's a lot of sound, but there's only one person to deal with, which is much easier than if we would be a quartet or more people. What was I thinking about? Yeah, we know our instruments quite well. Like, I mean, I have like 100 different things I can do, but Kristoffer has heard all of it at least 5 times. It's we recognize each other's vocabulary, even though it's changing. It's how do you say, familiar? Like there are. And also, and we like the sounds, so you accept it and you work with it. We do listen back always, or as much as we can, if we have time. If we've done a little session of 20 minutes, we try to put it on right away and listen to it, and then we do talk about it. we will be like, oh, this part could have lasted longer, or here I wanted to build it up, but you were pulling back. Oh, okay. And then it's not that we're making any deals for the next time, but we're just reflecting out loud to sort of confirm our strategies, and to be like, oh yeah, I can leave you alone. You can deal with that. Yes, it's fine. I can also deal with it. Yes. Or some things have a limit. Like if I've started some kind of fast beat, and I would like to keep it going for 5 minutes, but I just physically can't. Like I will get a cramp. And then I wish musically that I would have kept it going, but I just can't do it. And then, we don't look at each other at all, actually. And as a tap dancer, I am used to working with musicians that take a lot of information visually, that look at my feet to see. And here now she's hitting, and then I'm gonna who use my movement as a sort of a hint of what's gonna happen. But Kristoffer doesn't look at all.
Have to look at this little Arduino screen,
Yeah,
looking at a lot of things, right?
And that's, I guess, this other aspect. I mean, I've said it, but just to underline it, when we've played for. We've had many concerts that last for an hour, and then I've done a 60-minute sprint in a way, and I'm totally I've exhausted myself, and of course he's also exhausted, but he's been turning knobs, and looking down. So it's very different. Material in a way, or starting point. Yeah. And then just one more thing, especially if usually I have a little board, a small 1x1 meter or something, and if I step off of it, this you sometimes see in the corner of your eye, that I'm going away from the contact mic, and that tells him something. It's not always clear what. It doesn't, it just means that I'm leaving the effects now, and that he can then change everything, or he can keep it as it is and do a solo. I can come back and it can still be the same, or I can come back and it can be completely different. But this is like one of the crossroads that I can show in a way. That's like a visual cue, sort of. Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, when I play, it's I actually don't want much visual stimulation in a way, because it's almost like, how the thing sounds better in the dark when you close your eyes and so on. The music sounds more vivid and everything. So it's a lot about like, okay, I cut off this sense in a way, then I have more headroom for the other stuff. I have to think about both this technical thing, and then I have to kind of visualize the whole setup. Like, yeah, now she's triggering this and this and this, but of course it's going through that chain, so it won't make a sound unless I choose this thing. Like, I have to keep that in mind, and then it's about listening to the result and so on. And like that's kind of enough. Then I can't take in anymore. So when we play, for the most part, I just have to listen to Janne. But then it's like we have played so many times, and I guess it's also a little bit about just like chemistry. It's like some people you say hello, and then all of a sudden it's like 3 hours have gone because you never stopped talking. And with someone else, it's like you really have to push the conversation, and maybe there are some awkward silences and so on. So here it's like I feel when we are playing, everything is just like kind of working, and then when we're not playing, the conversation is just flowing, then we're talking. So it's like always just in process and flowing, and in some sense it's quite easy. Like there are some challenges and we have to work and everything, but it's not like we get stuck so much, I guess.
Right.
So
That's funny what you say.
Listening.
Right. So much of playing with other people is listening to what they're doing. You remind me of funny things that happen in a band, even when you're tapping all this time and you're turning, right? Like, sure, there's a lot of mental energy that goes into that. There are certain things in my band, when we play, my drummer will be like, okay, here we go. Cause his beat's like, do-do-da-da. It's like constant, but I'm just playing like bang, one big chord. Cause just everything else fills out. And it's like, yeah, this is a real tough one for you. But for me, it's actually, I don't do much, you know, so it's not quite as hard. But that process of, oh yeah, sure.
Oh, sorry. Please continue.
No. I was just going to say the process of reflecting on what you've heard, even if we're not going to do this again, you get the sense of like, oh, I see. So you're trying to develop that. That's the cool thing we can do in the future. It's so valuable. It kind of surprises me when people don't do that with the people they play music with. Like, you don't listen to it, you don't talk about it. Like, how do you know if it was working? Because I find that to be almost where the growth happens. Not even so much the actual performing, but the discussion.
But I must say that what I said in the beginning, I think it's so crazy to me how I experience the total of our music when I'm not dancing and just listening to it. It's like I don't know how to explain it. I almost can't recognize it. So when we listen back, I really discover it again. It's like, oh, this happened. Am I doing? Is this? Are you doing? And it's not that I wasn't present when we were making the music. It's just I don't know, sitting still and listening to it as its own package. It's really different, and I enjoy it a lot. I hate to watch myself on a video dancing. I don't want to analyze myself. But if I can just listen to the music, it's not even me or something, and it's its own thing, and I even enjoy it. So then it's no problem taking the time for it. Like, I still haven't watched the video of this huge performance I did 2 months ago because I don't want to see that too, but also the other one. I just don't want to give me a break. But to listen to our music is it's, I don't know, this maybe sounds like I'm bragging, but it's a new experience. I also play in acoustic bands, which I love. And then when we do concerts, I feel like I know more about, I'm more aware of the total. And then now it sounds like I'm not aware of the total when we're working, which is not true. But
I get what you're saying.
There's something different about the acoustic projects and this one. But I just wanted to also say that when we reflect and when we talk about, we never say, we could say, let's do a warm-up, and that's some kind of information. Or let's do a nice one because the previous one was so sad or whatever. We can have one little word, but we will never plan what it's going to be. We will just set the time and go. That's our preparation. But then after we talk a lot, and then when we are reflecting, we never criticize each other.
Only ourselves.
Yeah, we will be like, oh, I wish I'd done a different choice, or, oh, I couldn't sustain this thing I was aiming for. We will be critical and admit or wish for better or whatever. But I will never say I wish you were a bit faster on the knobs, Kristoffer, because that, or he would never tell me that that should have been more tight or whatever. Just not the way we speak. Of course we could be talking like that. It wouldn't, but I'm very glad we are not. And I think this contributes to this a feeling of trust and that you can take risks, and that I never feel like I have to be ashamed or embarrassed for anything I'm doing. So it gives more freedom to make choices, and also more like headspace to make choices. Yeah, it's this is not. I improvise a lot, and in many situations, I have to spend some time while on stage to establish trust or to establish my own confidence, because it's not, the room is shaky or the vibe is stressed or whatever. And this we don't have.
Right.
This, I mean, and once we performed at a bigger venue in a bigger situation, and yeah, then of course sometimes we are under pressure, and that has an effect on both of us, but we don't do this to each other. So and that's a good starting point for improvisation.
I also wanted to add that usually how I describe this difference between when you're playing and when you're listening to the recording after is that when you are performing and improvising, you are experiencing the feeling of doing it. But when you're just listening, then you are experiencing kind of the result, and you have a very different way into it. And that's why I think it's super, super important. And I try to record every concert I do at least. And for me, it's like almost every time a positive thing, because either I get confirmed that like I managed to do the thing I tried to do, and often if you do one fuck up and then you really get in your head about it, and then you feel like this concert wasn't very good, and then I listen to the recording, it's like actually this only lasted for like half a second, and it wasn't even as bad as I thought. But even if it would have been as bad as I thought, like this was nothing in the whole of it. But when I was there, then now my confidence drops, and this thing that I'm judging, like my own playing, is it doesn't feel as good. But actually, it's kind of like your instincts take over, and still manage to play nice. So it's actually a really good experience for me to listen to these recordings.
That's a great point, because in your head, right, everything can be, the world is collapsing, and it's nice to hear it and hear the proof that no, it didn't. It really wasn't so bad, so that the next time it happens, you roll with it a little bit better.
Yeah.
And because that stuff happens, that's part of the performance, that's part of live music. It's
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's the fun stuff even. It's kind of cool that when we play in a band and we sped up in the chorus, it was exciting,
Yeah.
Whereas
and
you might...
especially for electronic music. I always think about this. There are so many videos on YouTube from this superstar EDM producers who, of course, their performance is only a DJ set, and it's not really a DJ set. Sometimes it's almost just like a playback set in a way. And then there are all these videos of when the CDJ crashes, and it's like boom, or it starts skipping or whatever. Like people don't use CDs anymore, but the CDJ, like the Pioneer ones, and when it crashes, and it's comes all this weird noises and so on, and there is this big stadium of people, and they're just going crazy, they're loving it, and everyone is filming it, just woo! And then the DJ maybe is dramatic, this shitty equipment, and turn it to the side, and there's a stage technician that brings out another $4,000 machine, okay, here you go, okay, now we can do it again, because they realize that there is some humanity happening, and there is something happening right now, and this is not going to happen tomorrow. We are actually in a special moment right now. So I think that when you are able to bring some of these like human things in some way to electronic music performance is really, really valuable. And I think like even now with everything being so like perfect and AI and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we crave that. We want to know that I was at that show when this happened.
Yeah, exactly.
I was there when that, instead of like, I was at one of the shows where this happened every time.
Yeah.
So, not a big moment, but when you
I
experience
kicked the contact mic off of the stage.
Yeah, that's true.
I by accident, I kicked it and it flew away, and then just had to run and get it and
I kept on playing.
stick it back on the. It was a very spectacular moment.
It was, and she was also triggering this big like 909 style kick drum sound from it.
Okay.
It was really funny.
It's funny. Yeah.
But actually, like, of course, this was kind of a mistake and whatever. But often in our concerts, sometimes we really try to go with this, like, and you can sense this shift sometimes. That like, okay, now it's like now there is a challenge here. Like I think about this one clip that we have, where we play actually the stage below our studio here, and Janne is triggering this synth sound, and it has like reverb on it, and it sounds like very full and very nice. And then I just like gradually I take away all the elements, and I take away the reverb, and I make the sound very short. So like now there is like no help in a way. There is no like filling out, and it's just like, and it's like she stops, and it's like all quiet. And you really like people start smiling, and they're like really, and then Janne's like, okay, here we go. And the sound is just like following, and it's like so snappy and everything. But then you really get this like, okay, now actually we understand everything. Now it's like very one-to-one. And then it's like, okay, now we're going to a floaty space again. But like there are a few of these moments where it's like you get a sense that people, they tune into some of these things.
Yeah, it's fun. Audiences I must say, audience is really, really paying attention at our concerts. They're really like staring and joining somehow, and it's especially when we have explained a little bit what we do. They are like. It's almost like school children, like yes, and they're just in it together with us. That's really nice. We really appreciate this.
Yeah, we actually do this pretty much every concert. We play maybe like 5 minutes or 10 minutes or something, and then we stop, and then we say like, hello, we're a blah blah blah, and then we explain just very easily how it works, because then there's also a very big shift in the audiences. Like now they're kind of believing what they were thinking was happening. It's like, oh yeah, well, yeah, I was feeling that it was very connected here, and the time was going up and down and following. It's like, yeah, now you can trust you can trust yourself in a way. It's like back to this VR experience. Like now you can believe it, and then they appreciate it more, and like they can just take it for what it is actually.
I think that's probably an important part for what you guys do, because it is so different from what anyone's seen before. To just give them a little window into like, hey, you see this that's happening here? You hear this that's happening here? And then this is why it's happening. And then you can go back to the kind of the music that you're making, but to let you know, like, hey, here's when I do this, this happens. And then we've even seen that when like live looping was new and someone had a guitar and they were like, okay, let me show you, I'm going to start with the beat. And then they play the next part. They kind of just tell you a little so that you're like, oh, I see. Instead of just, I hear 7 guitars. I don't know why. There's only one person there.
But also because, as you said earlier, usually people are used to the dancer just dancing to the music. that's so normal for people that when we have not explained what we're doing, people have seriously thought that I'm just I practice a lot and I'm just exactly on top of Kristoffer's music. Like I just know where the beats are and then I'm sort of following. And then when I tell them, no, I'm playing those rhythms that you're hearing. Those sounds are, they can believe it, but they have then watched the whole concert thinking that I'm just there for the dance moves in a way. And that's also it's not strange because it's so common. You practice dancing and you make sure you know the music,
choreographed.
And the music maybe just there's no musician, it's just coming out of the speakers, and then you have people dancing synchronized. It's the most normal thing, of course. So I'm not I don't take it I don't think people are stupid. It's just it is it took us some time to realize how hard it was for people to get over their assumption of what dance is and what music is, and how long they would stick to believing this, even though the evidence is happening right in front of you. It's just you would rather assume that I have practiced a lot to make this exactly like this, and not that I would play or that we would have the technical abilities to do it the way we do it.
And the ironic part is, of course, that this sort of like rehearsing and kind of faking it would probably be harder because the timing is like so crazy, you know.
Right.
So for the tap dance, it would be much harder than to just do it.
That's another idea. We should make a music video once where we're playbacking our own music. Or like fake tap dancing on top of some.
Yeah. When we're there with the sheet music and it's like, oh no, and we like have to take out the scissor and cut away a little bit of a bar and glue it together.
Your version of lip syncing.
Yeah, exactly.
See how much we can get away with, like how disconnected the movements and the sound would be, how long you would like accept it.
Well, we usually think of dance as a reaction to music. You dance to the music. So you're dancing the music now. It's so much more interactive than we're used to seeing. So it does sort of require, at least right now, right? Like a little introduction, a little crash course here. You know, I think that's cool.
But it's also interesting how how it brings some sort of energy into it. Like this is also a project where I have to stand when I'm playing. Like I can't sit and play this music because I also start moving. It's like I don't move the same way Janne is moving, of course. But I'm like, I actually have to like kind of activate my body in a way, and like I can't do so much. Like I just like wiggle back and forth and like get active in a way. But still, it's this like transfer or energy, or like kind of feeling the vibe of it a little bit.
I love that myself when I'm producing, when I'm making music. I mean, playing guitar, you're standing, you're kind of already dancing. So I'm kind of used to that. But when I'm sitting at the desk making the music, sometimes I can't even tell if it's grooving. So this desk actually is one of those rising desks that you can make a stand-up desk. So when I'm making the music, I'm usually standing, because for me, if I start moving, I kind of know. Because you know how it is when you're like programming things and you're being really selective about where every drum hit is going, every rhythmic element, it can get hard to tell if it's robotic or if it's even working. But if my body's just kind of naturally like, all right, here we go, then I don't need any more proof than that. I can trust that.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's something that's a little tough for probably a lot of people when they're making music at a computer. It's very sedentary, and especially when you're making dance music. Like, how do you really know if it's working unless you're testing it out?
Yeah, and with that kind of music, it's also very like you try to tune it to the sound system in a way, to the club. So it's also very different. People only listen to it on like headphones and small speakers, and others who are maybe out DJing in the weekend. Like I remember the producer Fortet. He always talks about how he's always testing his mixes when he's DJing, because then it's like, and now he has done it for so many years, so he really knows how it should be. But there is this like physical aspect of it that is like hard to, like it only kind of becomes real when it comes out of the speakers in a way. Sometimes it's almost like the waveform on the screen and so on. That's almost like the score in a way, and then the speaker and the sound system is the musician that is actually realizing it. And when you use a different player, a different speaker, it sounds different and it feels different. So taking these things into consideration is can be very important depending on the genre and so on.
Well, music and sound, really. Sound is, I forget who said this to me, but I never thought of it the same way. It's really kind of a very sensitive form of the sense of touch, because it's moving air. And what our ears are picking up on is that movement, and our body feels it. You feel the bass, and it's moving at a certain pace, depending on the frequencies and all. So when you are in your headphones, and it's a nice experience too, but there is really something about feeling it through a speaker. Even playing guitar, where I can have an amp sim that sounds like a huge Marshall stack in the Grand Canyon, and it's cool sounding, but there's nothing like standing in front of it and hitting that chord and just like, oh, it's exciting. And I mean, I guess that's why they have like some of those sub pack type things that you can wear that, I guess I've never tried it, but I guess it vibrates so you can simulate those feelings. But yeah, anyone that's been to a concert and just felt the movement of the air that's happening when the speakers are sending out those frequencies, it's exhilarating.
There's also vibrations through the floor from the tap dance. Can be sometimes, if I'm on the same level as the audience, then they will also feel it through their own feet, especially if they're sitting, that they will get the, that can be really nice part of the experience too.
Yeah, that's cool. I didn't think of that. But you're right. Yeah, just sending that, and that's so one-to-one, like you guys are talking about too. That there's that feedback that somebody gets. That's cool.
And it's interesting because these are like, in one sense, we are in very different worlds. Like Janne has an acoustic sound, and my sound doesn't exist before it comes out of a speaker. And then we're trying to blend these two things. And we're playing in many different venues with different sound systems, different acoustics, different floors that have different sound. And it's an interesting challenge. It's not always so easy. Like sometimes we have to scratch our head a little bit during sound check, but it usually works out very well.
It's really interesting stuff, and I want to let people know where they can find it. And this also, I think, brings up something I wanted to ask you about too. So, that's how we say it, like right? So,
It's not how we say it, but you're getting there.
Okay. I'm sorry for messing with it. I don't even know what the first letter is called, but it's like a 0 with the line through it, the diagonal line, and then Y, and you say it.
A.
How do you say?
A.
So it's more. That's the letter.
A.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm pulling out my New York accent. Like,
yeah, that's pretty
There
close.
you go.
We didn't think about this when we chose band name. Right.
Well, it was easy to find. Once I figured out how to type that letter in the search bar, it came right up.
That's great.
But I know it's on all the streaming services. People can find it. I'll put the links in the show notes too. But I wanted to ask you about this Be Your Own Platform thing you have going on, which I never heard of before. # Be Your Own Platform. And that's 2 T's in platform. And you reference MySpace, which I remember doing MySpace with my last band, and that was kind of how we judged our popularity. How many plays did we get on our MySpace player? Like this back in the 2000s. And then one day, no one was on MySpace anymore.
Yeah, and now we're experiencing like a real sort of internet capture in a way with what's his name, Cory Doctorow, who coined the word enshittification, which was the word of the year in previous year or something. And it's
Enginification?
No, enshittification.
Okay.
So the concept is that there comes a new platform, and it gives you all these benefits to reach new people and all of this. So let's say going from MySpace to Facebook. So Facebook comes along, you make your Facebook band page instead of your MySpace profile, and all of a sudden you reach all these new people. And then first they cut off like the regular people, so now you have to pay for the reach. And now it's just yeah, exactly. So now it's just the corporations that get the benefit, and slowly now also the corporation get no benefit, and it's all going to shit. But everyone is like super locked in. That's their power move. So this whole concept of Be Your Own Platform is that you make your own platform. So you're just locked into your own platform, and you decide if you want to change it. Because we have seen a few rounds now. So we had MySpace, and then we had Facebook, and Facebook is really not working anymore. And people are still using Instagram. Instagram is kind of still okay. But still, now there's coming a lot of ads there and all of this stuff. And but the one thing that doesn't go away is like your own place. So this Be Your Own Platform thing, it came out of the Bandcamp drama, actually, when Bandcamp were sold 2 times. And it's basically just a movement where people are exploring the alternatives and trying to do things themselves. So it's a lot about making your own website, having a newsletter that people can subscribe to. So even though actually Google are also destroying email a little bit now, because they are so monopolistic with the Gmail, and all of a sudden your email goes into a different tab and people don't read it. But they're still pretty good with email, and then you can make a RSS feed and so on. But anyways, the website itself, like, people can't destroy that. So that's kind of the concept about doing things yourself. And like, for example, a year ago, I stopped paying for SoundCloud Premium because I thought the service was getting really bad. Like, it was so great when it started, but every capitalistic platform, they have to grow all the time, and then they just have to make more money, and then you get ads. And then I think now with SoundCloud, if you open a SoundCloud link and you're not logged in and a real user or whatever, first, of course, you say, hey, do you want to be a user? And it's like, no, click away all the things. And then you press play and it's working. And then it's like, oh yeah, I need to skip to the middle part. Then it's like, no, you can't skip in the track unless you're paying customers. So this is happening like everywhere. And this Be Your Own Platform thing is basically trying to explore the alternatives. And a lot of it is going back to how the internet used to be. like when you're talking about the open web. This same guy, Cory Doctorow, he describes it now as the internet for most people are like 4 websites filled with screenshots of the other ones. So it's like you go on Instagram and it's like, oh, here's a tweet, and then you go on. Anyways, so that's the concept. So it's a lot about people trying to be independent, and especially for more like underground artists and niche stuff and so on. We actually are not trying to go as wide as possible. We're trying to go as deep as possible, and this doesn't really work when you are in the same feed competing for people's attention together with like McDonald's and Beyonce, you know. So it's much better to have like a more direct connection. And if you see the parallel to like the physical world, it's like you go to you play in these small bars and maybe you play on a bigger space here and so on, but actually you are in all these small spaces and you're connecting with people. You're not trying to go fill a stadium, but that's kind of what we're doing when everything is on the same feed. Yeah, could have a whole podcast about this, but it's quite interesting actually to question some of these things. And okay, I'll do a quick example more, and that's now I publish on my website. I have a blog, and I still put some videos on YouTube, but I also put them just directly on the blog, just a HTML player, very easy, like people did in the 90s, except now everyone have fast internet, so you can have high definition. But so there is no view counter. And just this difference is like a huge difference, because if you go on YouTube, it's like filled with thumbnails of people trying to pull out their craziest expression and clickbait title. And it's like, this one have 200,000 views. This must be a good one. This one has 50 views. Oh, I won't bother. And maybe that's the good one, you know, or the one that you would enjoy.
Yeah, it's interesting how those numbers, even just subconsciously, make us think, oh, good, bad, not good. No one cares about this, but this is good. And most of us are looking for those things that are very specific to us and that we want something that's kind of different. But those numbers are a lot. But what you're saying about controlling your own platform, having your website, your email list, I agree with wholeheartedly, because like you, I've seen the internet change now and watched platforms go away, and some of them I've invested a lot of work into. And sometimes it's just a little change in the dial and how they put their information out, how you reach your followers, if you even reach your followers. All that can change so fast, but when you have your own control, you can at least ensure you'll still be there tomorrow.
Yeah, because they, like, some of these platforms are still valuable. Like, we got booked to one of the, if not the biggest, jazz festival in Norway, based on like Instagram clips. But then that's kind of like going on the street and giving out flyers, you know? Then maybe some people see it, maybe they check it out. So this is kind of like advertisement. But then what is the next level? Like when people have found your stuff and there's like, this is something maybe I would be interested in, then it's about having the place to invite them to. Because if not, you're gonna get lost in this stream.
Yeah. Well, when I go on my social medias, even my YouTube, I'm not necessarily getting the stuff I've subscribed to. It's the stuff that they think I'm going to want to see. That's going to somehow bait me in, because it's really about just keeping you on the platform. And who could blame them, really? I mean, that's what they're trying to do. If you understand their goal, it makes sense.
Exactly. So then we're trying to...
You're not paying for it anyway. So why would you expect them to do anything else? It's not a charity act that it's out there.
But I've been talking about this movement a lot, and I made like a rant video on YouTube where I was talking about this, and I was saying that YouTube used to be so great because you would see all these independent people putting out their videos that couldn't go on TV, and now it's kind of being removed because you only see the already popular stuff on the big or on the algorithmic feed and so on. But in that video or under the video, like in the comment section, there was also a person who wrote to me that, oh yeah, I really connect with all the stuff you're saying and so on and blah blah blah. And then they wrote, oh, now I realize that you are the person that I watched a video of 10 years ago, where you used this one guitar that I was considering buying. And I watched the video, and then I saw you use this monom grid, and then I got so inspired that this actually started this whole journey for me. And now, 10 years later, now I'm making all these sounds that I've always dreamt about making. And like this comment is like super touching, And this wouldn't happen unless I put my video on this now pretty shitty platform in a way. So it's very nuanced in a way. But I think it's important to ask some of these questions.
Yeah, it's amazing, but we're so lucky to have this stuff at all, right? And on one level, it is like almost crazy that we would complain about it. But if you want that control of your own work, keep it in your control. Don't sign it off to something else, because anything could happen at any moment.
Yeah, at least not put all your eggs in that basket.
Right. Yeah. I think, take advantage of it. Use it. I mean, like you said, you've reached people, you've changed lives. So there's something cool about it.
But this wasn't reflected in the numbers. Like this was reflected in someone telling me, So that's also a very interesting observation.
Yeah.
Because it's not like that video made crazy numbers. I thought it was a cool video, so I was happy about it. But like when someone tells me 10 years after that, it literally changed their life a little bit. That's very valuable. But that only comes from someone reaching out and having a conversation.
Yeah. I guess is a reason why we should do that to the people we admire and the work we appreciate,
Absolutely.
It's a conversation, and that is a cool thing that we can get involved too. It's not just that we can put it out, but we can interact with all the people we enjoy the work of.
But you have to make sure to kind of do it, because what's so easy in these systems is that the humans disappear. It's just left with this systematic, almost AI in a way.
Right. Weird times.
Yeah, definitely. So a good trick is bring a tap dancer on stage. Very human.
Yeah. And it's different, and it's eye-catching and ear-catching, right?
That's funny.
But you guys are doing awesome stuff.
Thank you.
I'm really happy too, just on my own level of the last time I spoke with you, Kristoffer, this idea was just starting, and here we are now to see it start to come to fruition and see the energy. And by now, all of the chemistry that the two of you have musically is amazing. It's inspiring for me to see, and it just goes to show that, your visions can come to life. And I'm sure it's even taken on dimensions you never imagined 5 years ago.
Definitely. And right back to you, like for sticking around, and keep on producing this podcast and all the great things you do. It's like, it's really nice stuff.
Thanks. And well, thanks for being an early adopter, coming on the show in the way back days. I forget what number, I got it open here, but the first time you were on was number 41, which was probably the first year I was doing it. So
yeah, it wasn't video on the first one.
No, it wasn't. Yeah.
And it was really funny, actually, when I asked you to do this one, I checked like what was the previous episodes now, and what's his name? Is Francis Preve?
Yeah, Francis Prev.
Yeah, he was on, I think, the episode before me last time, and he was quite recently on.
Yeah.
So I felt like it was the circle is, we're on the same tempo here.
Yeah, I've had a few people that want to talk to me again, which is great. And this has been a very human thing to do for me with like this technology and with the work, because it can get lonely, making your music in your home. And even if you are putting it out there, like you said, you don't always hear back from people. So it's really nice to talk. And it's been a lot of fun for the people I have reconnected with on the show, or even in real life occasionally, to just see how they've developed and changed and what they're up to. I think that's really a big part of everything we do, is this connection. Even releasing
definitely.
music, if you're releasing it, you're trying to connect on some level. Otherwise, you just keep it to yourself and be like, no, it's mine. So this has been a fun road to be on, and I'm glad to have you on it. And I'm glad that you're now on the road too and doing really awesome stuff together.
Yeah, awesome.
All righty.
What a great way to end it. Very positive.
I think so, yeah. So we'll put the links in the show notes. Do you want to just say, I know we've got your website. This would be, so Kristoffer Lislegaard is going to be KRISTOFFERLISLEGAARD.com.
There is also a simpler version. I made the short one. So it's just LISLEG.com. Then it links to the other one.
Oh, very good. LISLEG.
Yeah.
.com.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then we have a website. So it's O, not Ö, but O, the normal letter for you people. OYDuo.com.
Okay. OYDUO?
Yeah.
.com?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And then there is links to everywhere.
Nice. And I'll put it all in the show notes too, if that was too much for anybody.
Great.
Well, thank you both very much. And thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to the Music Production Podcast. If you want to help support the show, the best thing you can do is tell a friend, someone you think that would enjoy the show. I'd also love it if you could leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to support my work, you can go to brianfunk.com. I've got tons of Ableton Live packs, tutorials, samples. You can check out my book, The 5-Minute Music Producer, which gives you 365 short music-making activities to help you get started, stay inspired, and finish more music. And there's also the Music Production Club, where you get my latest releases as soon as they're finished. It gives you access to a community of like-minded people who are making music and sharing ideas. You can share your music, find new collaborators, and participate in our live meetings where we set up some kind of musical challenge and then make music together and share our results at the end. That's the Music Production Club. It's a lot of fun, and you can find that and everything that I do at brianfunk.com. Thanks again for listening to the show, and have a great day.